Good morning. I am sharing with you guys what I read / what I am currently reading today in my new house while I'm eating breakfast. Breakfast is kind of boring today. I don't have any fresh fruit, so I just have oatmeal with a frozen banana in it and some dried cranberries and some cinnamon, and I put some cacao nibs and sunflower seeds on top. I made iced coffee with some lavender honey in it that I got from the farmer's market. I'm going to talk to you about 3 books today that I read recently that I really like. And when I say recently, that's a bit of a stretch. Within like the past 2 months. 2 books that I read, 1 book that I'm currently reading. Okay. So the first book that I want to talk about is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. I only read 1 book by Haruki Murakami before, and that was Norwegian Wood. I have a few that I definitely want to get to in the future. But mainly all of his books are fiction, and a lot of them have fantastical elements and hints of magical realism that just make his writing spark. I really loved the first book that I read by him, and so reading this one I knew I would absolutely love it, because What I Talk About When I Talk About Running is a memoir, first of all, and I love memoirs, and it's a memoir about writing. Those are my favorite kinds. I love Charles Bukowski's On Writing, as well as Stephen King's On Writing. Both of them called On Writing. Would really recommend both. I know that Ray Bradbury also has one that I really want to get to in the future, and I'm saying that more as a note to myself to actually look into purchasing that on Amazon, because otherwise I'm going to completely forget too many books. What I talk about when I talk about running isn't as much about writing as it is about Haruki Murakami's relationship with exercise, and mainly his relationship with running and doing triathlons and making it work within his writing routine, which is something that you never hear authors talk about. Like, you always think of an author sitting at a desk just doing this one sedentary activity, when in reality they could be doing so much more and you would never know it. It really helps me, because in the past I've struggled with like actually wanting to like go out and do different activities and reading, because reading is such a sedentary activity, and if you're really focusing on it like a lot of booktubers do, it's hard to actually go out and focus on other activities. Like, I've gone through bouts of going to the gym and not reading anything, and then bouts of not going to the gym and reading everything. So it's one of those things that's really hard to balance, but he was doing it so well with his writing and with his running, and eventually he was doing marathons. He went to Greece and ran his own marathon. He's done multiple triathlons. He tries to do a triathlon a year and a marathon a year, and that just blows my mind. I got cavities filled yesterday. Feels funky. This is like the perfect accompaniment right now to my oatmeal. So satisfying. That book is the perfect book to get you motivated to do anything. To read, to write, to actually go out and do activities. I loved it. And it was so fast too. It's less than 200 pages. I think it's like 180 something. It's so good. Pick it up. And even if you don't think that you would like any of his other books, I think it's just such a great book for anybody to read. Next book. The Reason You're Alive by Matthew Quick. I am a huge Matthew Quick fan. The one book that I didn't like of his was the one that came out last year. I can't even remember the title of it right now, but I'll put that one here. But The Reason You're Alive was just like all of his other books, and it was such a relief to me to know that I could still call him one of my favorite authors. He writes books that are completely character-based, and he just writes the quirkiest characters, but characters that you can seriously feel for. They're so different than anybody that you've ever met, but they're so incredible. They're their own people. They have such a personality, and it's all about their development, that story, and it's just so incredible. Every single one of his books are like that. They're all so good. The quirkiest characters, and you just fall in love with all of them. Except for that one book that I didn't like, but I'm sure other people would like it. It just wasn't for me. So The Reason You're Alive is about an older man. He's a vet, and he has some PTSD, and he is living in this world. His wife passed away, and his son is a pretentious liberal who very clearly does things for the wrong reasons. He's an activist, but not really an activist. He's an activist, but he doesn't know why. He clearly has not done his research. He just does things because everybody else in his circle is doing them. His father's the opposite. He has a very logical reason for not liking the liberal standpoint, but also agreeing with some of the liberal standpoint. He doesn't care either way. He just has his own thoughts and feelings, and he shares them blatantly. He's hilarious, and while I don't agree with some of the things that he says, it's so great to read from that view. Within this book, you're just getting his entire life story. You get flashbacks from when he was back in the war, you get flashbacks from when he first met his wife, flashbacks from when she passed away. He had just recently gotten a part of his brain removed because he had something wrong going on in there. He had surgery. And this is just him looking back on times beforehand, as well as us going back to the present and seeing his life now. It's so interesting. I know that it doesn't seem like it would be hilarious, but just his voice is so funny to read from. It's so great. I absolutely loved this book. Would highly recommend. If you haven't read any Matthew Quick yet, please do so, because I think it's so good. The book that I'm currently reading, Good as Gone by Amy Gentry. Good as Gone is about this girl who is 13 years old that gets kidnapped from her house. 8 years later, she walks back onto that doorstep. Everyone thought that she was dead for years, so it's about her time coming back and everyone trying to figure out what's going on and why there are holes in her story. It's been a ride. I had like a few days where I really enjoyed it and I was flying through it. But then I had a week where I didn't read, and it wasn't because I didn't want to read, it's just because I didn't have time to read. So now I'm going back into it and I'm just forgetting things. And I don't know if that's on me or if that's on how the book is written, because it goes back and forth from the mother's perspective and her being very precautious towards this girl who came onto her doorstep. And then we're also following the perspective of the 13 but now 21-year-old girl, and it's sort of going backwards. So you see her on the doorstep and like what she's thinking there, and then years later, and then years later, and then years later, and following her story backwards. So you get those chapters in between the chapters of the mom in the present. So if you're not reading it constantly, it is hard to keep track of what's going on. I'm getting back into it now because I do want to finish it. I did think that it was really interesting while I was reading it. It's just hard to keep up with right now, but if I sit and focus and read it, I know I'll really enjoy it. And that's all I've got for you. Please, in the comments down below, tell me what you are currently reading, or tell me what you have recently read. Tell me if you've read any of the books that I have read and if you liked them or didn't like them. I'm going to be posting a video pretty soon talking about what I'm hoping to read in October. It's weird because I haven't been in the reading game for a while, but I really want to get back into it, especially since I'm in a new area and I want to maybe do NaNoWriMo. So I want to read, I want to get into that zone. I feel like now that I'm feeling more comfortable in my place, it feels honestly kind of like a vacation being in my house. It's such a relaxing place and I want to utilize that for my reading. Hope you guys are having a great day and a great week, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.